Hello everyone and welcome to this week's game development log video diary, and this week I've been working on a 3D picking system. So a 3D picking system basically allows you to interact with things in the 3D world with your mouse cursor, which is of course on a 2D screen. Up until now I was using a method which involved raycasting, which is a method that I talked about in a tutorial a while ago, and although this method is very good at selecting points on the terrain, it's a little bit tricky to use it to accurately and efficiently work out which entity is currently being clicked on. So this week I implemented a different 3D picking system which involves rendering all of the entities in the scene to an off-screen image. So here's what that off-screen image would look like, and straight away you can see that the entities aren't rendered using their normal models. Instead, each entity has a close-fitting box put around it, and then it's that box that gets rendered to the image, and this is done because it's a lot quicker than rendering the actual entity models. I've also encoded the ID of each entity into the colour of its corresponding box. So to find out which entity the mouse cursor is currently over, I just have to get the colour of the image at the mouse cursor's position, and then decode that colour to find out the ID of the entity that it represents. Using this system, I could then work out which entity was being moused over or clicked on, and to show this in the game I added these circular highlights around the entities. Whenever you mouse over an entity now, it shows a white circular highlight, and the size of this highlight is automatically calculated based on the size of the object. So for example, it's much bigger for trees and rocks than it is for grass and mushrooms. When you left click on an entity, the highlight turns yellow to indicate that that entity is now selected, and in the future this will actually bring up a GUI which would look something like this, giving you information about that entity. You can also now right click on an entity to pick it up, and then you can right click again to put it back down, which obviously allows you to move entities around in the world. When you're doing this, the circular highlight under the entity will either be red or green, indicating whether the entity can be placed or not. So for now you can see that it doesn't let me place the entities too close to the water. As well as that, and this is definitely my favourite part of the update this week, I added some swinging physics to the entities when they're grabbed to make it look like they're dangling down from the mouse cursor. The picking up bit is still a tiny bit glitchy, but after that they swing around nicely, and I find this especially satisfactory with the sheep for some reason. They just seem to look very cute hanging in the air like that, and if you pick up a bit of speed you can actually chuck them around if you want. The main reason for being able to move entities around in the scene is for the selective breeding system that I'm going to be working on soon. Last week I was working on a very simple reproduction system for the sheep, and I showed in last week's behind the scenes devlog video how that could be used to simulate evolution, and this week I've been using similar concepts to allow the player to selectively breed animals or plants. This system is still very early on in development, but basically what happens now is that the sheep are only able to breed with other nearby sheep, and again when they do breed and have offspring they pass on their traits and characteristics to the offspring with very slight variations. What this means is that by moving the sheep around you can choose which sheep breed together, and therefore you can sort of choose which characteristics get passed on to the next generation. At the moment the only characteristic that sheep have is colour, and what you can see me trying to do here is to breed a blue sheep. So the way that I'm doing this is by moving the bluest sheep that I can find into the same area to allow them to breed together, and then after a while when they've created some offspring I'll do the same again, always selecting the bluest sheep in the population and putting them together to breed. So by doing this for a while you're basically going to be able to selectively breed sheep or any other animal or plant to have whatever characteristics you want them to have. So that is it for another week. Next time I'm going to be working a bit more on this mouse picking system because there are a few things that I need to tidy up, and I'll also be doing work on the biomes and the breeding system. Also, it is of course the first devlog video of the month, so I need to give a big thank you to the fantastic top Patreon supporters from last month, and this time they were Justin, Crazy Rusky, Jerry Bradshaw, Crazy Red, Danny, Danny D, Ivan, Benjamin Fuller and Nathan. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching this video. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Have a brilliant week, and I will see you all next time.